We're back at the lab. Those apples we pressed, all that juice we got has been divided into 6 different amounts here. Five of those roughly equal amounts are in these 5 kegs. One of them in this pail right here. All that juice was sulfited, you remember, and now it's almost 24 hours later. Kegs have been kept cool with the sulfite in, and hopefully the SO2, the sulfite's done its job. It will have killed lots of the wild yeast and some of the bacteria. Not necessarily 100% of it, and that's okay. We don't care. We don't mind if we get some interesting stuff going on, but mostly it's been cleaned up pretty good. And then the purpose of all the different experiments is to try out different cultures, different yeasts, and different processes. So, there's one with a particular yeast here, and all the others each have a different culture. The pail is something a little bit special we'll talk about. We're going to try keeving, an old French and British cider producing technique. So we're going to run our fermentations, each one with a bit of a different yeast culture. I've got start off with 3 different wine yeasts. Well, actually 2 wine yeasts and a cider yeast. The first one is called Chablis, 4242. It's a Y yeast culture. We're just going to find out what that does for us. It's one that I've read is recommended sometimes for cider. Then there's a Bordeaux yeast, which again, Y yeast 4267. And that's supposed to be quite nice. We'll give that a try. Then there's something they actually call cider yeast, which is kind of funny. I don't really know what that means. I mean, cider yeast can mean a lot of things. It can mean, a lot of times it can mean Brettanomyces, which is a particular genus of yeast often found in traditional UK cider and sometimes French. This one's, the cider yeast is called 4766. So those 3 we're going to try all separately in 3 different fermentations. Then we've got a couple of dried cultures. We're going to try a particular dried ale yeast, which is Saf Ale SO4. This is actually called Whitbread. It's an English ale yeast called Whitbread. Again, that's been recommended. I'm just kind of interested to see what that'll be like. Most of the time you don't think of ale yeast to make cider, but certainly a lot of people have. So I want to find out what that tastes like. And then lastly, we're going to use some champagne yeast. I got some in this packet right here, but this is stuff that people are familiar with seeing. It's a Lalvin culture, EC1118, and that's a standard champagne yeast used in lots and lots of home brewing. It's famous for resulting in a pretty dry product. It scavenges all the sugar, can use everything up. And often that's, you want to sometimes get away from that with cider, but one thing it does do for you is it allows you really to taste the fruit, the aroma and the flavor. It's not, it's a pretty neutral yeast, apart from the fact that it tends to dry things out. I've actually had a lot of good experience using this yeast. There's some things you can do to try to leave some residual sugar in the product to get a little body and a little bit of flavor, despite the fact that you're using this yeast. And it's important for me to use this yeast because I have a lot of history with it, so it'll allow us to compare. It's like a control. We're going to be comparing the cider we make with these other yeasts to this one because I have a really good sense of what that's going to taste like. All right, so I've had some glass beakers here and some sanitizer, and I'm just going to give it a little quick rinse. And I want some warm water to dissolve and hydrate our yeast, mostly to hydrate it. Just a little bit, not a big deal. And we'll see what temperature we're at. Actually, that's not bad at all. I want a little bit less water than that, I think. I don't want to be adding too much water to the cider. So it's not bad. That's below 30 degrees. It's about 28 degrees right now. So now I'm going to weigh out 5 grams of the yeast altogether. So it's zeroed. And I'm going to take that up to where I know it's 5 grams. And there it is over here. Just make sure. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's not bad. We'll be using some of that again later. And this is our 28 degree water or so. So I'm just going to put that in there. Oh, some of that yeast is stuck in there, but you know what? That's okay. All right, so we're just going to leave this here for a few minutes. It's going to hydrate and it's going to get totally wet and just become homogeneous with the water, and that'll be ready to pitch, ready to add for that champagne yeast. All right, so the next yeast we're going to use is an ale yeast, Safale SO4. This is called Whitbread, as I mentioned earlier. And I'm just going to weigh out, in this case, I'm probably going to use about 8 grams. Sounds good. So let me see. Altogether, I need to go 33. There we go. And that's not bad. That's good. And I just want to rehydrate that in some, in a little bit of very slightly warm water. Rinse the sanitizer off that. Yeah, it's not bad. It's about 27, something like that. So I'm just going to put the yeast in there. So I'm going to keep it there for, I don't know, 5 minutes, something like that, and you'll see it change. It'll get a little bit gooey. It'll be dissolved basically and rehydrate, and be ready to add to the apple juice. All right, so this is the pack of Chablis yeast. I'm just going to spray it with some. This is actually isopropanol. It's just rubbing alcohol. Little sanitizer at the top of the fermenter. I'm just going to spray that. And oh, you know what? I should also spray my scissors just a little bit. No big deal. And now I am ready for the moment of truth. Oh, there it is. Too much spray. Cider number 2, Chablis yeast. That there. And the gas valve on the lid is open, so it can vent as it ferments. So earlier today I did something called smacking, smack these packs, and what there is inside these Y yeast packs is a little nutrient bubble in there in a little bag, and when you're ready to use the yeast just before a few hours or 12 hours or a day, basically you just find that little bag inside, you can feel it, and you just hit it between your hands, and it breaks open inside, and it starts feeding the yeast a bit, so it grows, it activates the yeast, it makes it really ready to start fermentation. You leave it for a few hours, a little bit warm, and you come back and you can add it to your juice, and your fermentation should start really nice and active. All right, so I'm just gonna put a little isopropyl spray on there to sanitize the pack. Scissors were already done, but let's just give them another spray. Okay, that's cool. Spray the top of the vessel, and yeah, so now I'm ready to give it a quick little shake. Cut the top off. This is the Bordeaux yeast. So here we go. And again, it's a little bit different. That valve's actually, that's closed. Make sure that valve is open. There it is, so the gas can come out as the fermentation begins. Cut the top. This is already full of gas. You can see the pack's really swelled up nicely. And there we go. Give a quick little sanitizing spray to the top of the vessel, and I'm ready to add the yeast. Go. Lid's back down. So now I'm going to add our champagne yeast that's fully hydrated to the keg for that one. And just give it a little whoop. Nice and foamy, a little bit foamy. Oh man, that smells like Cheerios. Okay, let's do it. So I've got the Whitbread yeast, that's the English ale yeast that I'm going to try out here. I'll just give it a final stir with a sanitized thermometer here. And here we go, let's do it. Airlock's open. All these pitched fermentations and this keeved one, we're going to keep in this room, and we're going to open the window a little bit sometimes to try and keep the temperature down to maybe, I don't know, 16 degrees, something like that. The fermentations will probably rise up higher than that in temperature just because they generate their own heat, you know, fermentations like that. But it is important to keep the temperature controlled, keep it down, and not let it kind of free rise really, really high, because you often end up producing certain flavors that, you know, that aren't necessarily what you want.